It's time now to review headlines from today's newspapers with the Ombudsman of This Day Anarise Media Group and This Day Newspaper Limited Group's Executive Director, Kayode Komolafe. And we are also joined by BBC reporter Yemisi Adegoke. A big welcome and good morning to you both. We're jumping for joy, literally.
Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, all.
All right.
Well, I guess we'll begin
with This Day.
With This Day as usual.
Yes, as usual.
Steve?
We'll start with This Day newspaper, the newspaper of record. And of course, from what we've seen, practically all the other papers, the lead story are pretty similar. It's about the Anambra election. For this day, it says Soludo, Ozigbo, Ngige. Others kick as widespread glitches mar Anambra election. A couple of riders, INEC launches probe, extends accreditation, voting till today. To begin collation of results this morning, hoodlums snatch ballot boxes in Onitsha, attack INEC officials in Ihiala. Another, well, if you like, politically interesting story there is on top of the lead story, below the masthead. With outcome of National Convention, PDP governors consolidate grip on party, may take presidential ticket. IU says PDP's defeat in 2015 a blessing, says delay in zoning presidential ticket tactical. Above the masthead, FCT police arrest 8 kidnappers of Uni Abuja staff in Gwagalada Forest, which you'll find on page 5. And on the window, NNPC's JV assets, priority project funding, GOB $2.64 billion in 9 months. KK and YMC, before we leave this day, leave it for you to discuss. In an interesting development there, death toll hits 42 as 6 more persons rescued from the collapsed building. That's the collapsed building in Lagos. Those are the key stories on today's this day's cover. KK, over to you and YMC.
Yeah. We'll start with the story of the day, which is the Anambra election. You know, there's the story of this day, and is on the front pages of the other newspapers for review this morning: Independent, The Guardian, Telegraph, Daily Trust, The Sun, you know, and others. Now, the conduct of the election yesterday, you know, for me is reminiscent of a Yoruba saying. You know, let me first of all render that in Yoruba before I attempt the translation. The Yoruba saying is that Ibia Fonosi Ogun Ogbabelo. Okay, my attempt at translation is that, you know, the cause of the war belies the strategy put in place. It's like a city, you know, that is feels threatened by invasion. Now decide to take maybe the eastern border of the city, you know, turn it into a fortress, you know, believing that the attackers will come from the east, you know. But on the day of the invasion, the attackers, you know, perhaps approached the city from the west, you know, and so all the preparations made towards the east end, you know, does not work. Now, others, that metaphor, others relate to Anambra election. We all remember that up till yesterday morning, the fear was that, you know, perhaps there will be an Armageddon. You know, it will be a big fight between security agencies which were mobilized at the optimal level and IPOB, you know. Even with IPOB announcing, you know, the cancellation of the sit-at-home order, you know, there was still the apprehension in there was quite palpable, you know. So if you asked anybody 48 hours ago, what could be the problem with Anambra election? It was clear that you would think that it would be security.
We thought it would be violence.
Yeah, but ironically and unfortunately, you know, the problem is with the system of INEC, that the bimodal voter accreditation system, you know, BVAS, you know, the technology simply failed, you know, INEC. And I think this is a very serious matter. It's a good thing that INEC itself is you know, doing, you know, in-house check, you know, that is trying to find out, you know, what happened. But I think the public at large, you know, will definitely want to hold INEC to account on this matter because, as they say, to whom much is given, much is expected. A lot of money, is voted in Nigeria to electoral process, and when you add to it other resources, you have an election in which you have 35,000 policemen, concentrated in a state at a time when many parts of the countries are regarded as ungoverned territories, not secure, and all that thing. So if the nation has put in so much resources, definitely a greater output than what we're having now is expected. So why INEC looks inward to tell the public what happens, I think the commission also should be commended for the fact that it has tried to be elastic enough to make some adjustment, and that is extending the voting period, such that those who were unjustly treated yesterday, will have some relief. For instance, a candidate had to wait for 5 hours, 40 minutes before he could, cast his vote at the polling booth. That is simply unacceptable, if you are talking of a credible process. Then while we talk about the difficulty, also we should not also lose sight, of the fact that there are some positive things that happen. I mean, when you listen to NLB, of the situation room, one of it is that in some constituencies, voters actually rejected, bribes, that is, they rejected, vote buying, that they kicked against it, I think that is a matter of integrity. That is a thing to celebrate and also to hold up as example, to others, that while we are not happy about the low voter turnout, we're not happy about the issues, that reported. I think that demonstration of the resolve of the, that resolve of the people, is something that we should, celebrate and, commend to order, in others, even beyond Anambra State, as an example. The other thing, is the human aspect. I think it's also very unfortunate that while the authorities, made a lot of show of mobilizing security agencies, that not enough attention, is paid to their welfare. For instance, in Anambra local government area, policemen even had to, stage some form of demonstration, that their feeding allowance was not given. So you imagine the kind of a system where you send police on that kind of a special duty and not adequate arrangement is made for their feeding. I think on the part of the police, that is something that is also not acceptable, right. that you should correct and ensure that it does not happen again. Over and above all, is to say that if we are having a state election in which you have the opportunity of concentrating material and human resources, and this is the result we have in Anambra, that in itself, when you extrapolate things, is not something that is, Sharia, because what will happen when you have a nationwide election, when you have to, the resources, will be, spread, across. You won't be able to concentrate, on a particular state, So that is something, for INEC and all the other stakeholders, to have. And we should also, it's also legitimate on the part of Nigeria to look towards a period when election in a liberal democracy will be seen for what it actually should be, which is a festival. Election should be a festival of democracy, but you discover that the mood, in Nigeria when you're having an election is the mood of as if you are going to war, as if an Armageddon is going to take place, So the thing is to learn lessons from the Anambra election. Absolutely. And see when we'll get to that level of political maturity, that election will be mere festivals of democracy and not a preparation for war.
If we were to bring in Yemisi, you listened to the convener of the Situation Room and she outlined several glitches with the Anambra election. What does that tell you about, INEC's preparedness?
I definitely think there is cause for concern if we're at this stage and we're still suffering with technological issues as far as it comes with elections. We've been using technology in our elections for some time now, so there are quite a few questions as to why we're not able to get this right, especially as KK said, there's so much money that's being poured into this. So what exactly are the problems? Hopefully INEC will make public any reports or investigations they do into these issues. But, 2023 is around the corner. They've been allocated over 100 billion towards this election. So we want to make sure that that money is going into the right places and making sure that these technological kinks are sort of ironed out. And if for whatever reason they can't be, if it's situations beyond their control, like network, maybe we need to bring in a contingency plan so that people are able to exercise their right to vote without having to spend, hours and hours in the sun or having to have the time extended.
Absolutely.
That's right. You were going to speak to another story on the cover of this day?
The building collapse.
Yes.
Such a terrible, tragic story. Authorities have now said that the number of dead has risen to 42. An additional 6 have been pulled out alive. So that means we have a total of 15 people that have been rescued alive from that situation. The Vice President has again distanced himself from these reports, saying that he owns the building. He's been quite adamant that he has nothing to do with that. And, the government of Lagos has said that an independent inquiry will be established and made public. But this is a massive issue in Lagos. Just some stats here that say that 100 buildings have collapsed between 2005 and 2016. That's a really worrying number. That's hundreds, potentially thousands of families that have been, injured, killed, dispossessed of property. Like, why is this such a recurring theme? Last month, the governor of Lagos did relaunch a new building certification that was supposed to be rolled out. So I know it's early days, but why has that not yet done what it's supposed to do? There are just so many questions around this. It's just such a gruesome and, avoidable tragedy. And I hope that when that report does come out, it will be able to provide some more answers for us as far as building safety is concerned.
Absolutely. It is an awful story.
And you covered it quite a bit.
Well, it happened, didn't it? Yeah. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
I think the little bit of good news that we've gotten from that is that in additional, as Yemisi said, additional 6 people were discovered at the police hospital not too far from here in Palomo. So then, with them obviously being there, who had previously been on site, they're considered survivors, and that takes our overall the survival number up to 15, which is a good thing. But unfortunately, the death toll is far greater than that. Yeah. And as Yemisi said, this is obviously something that was avoidable, and we're hoping that with the independent panel that's been set up to investigate this, there'll be a few more answers as to why you think this happened.
Which is really very important, given that, we're still dealing with the NSAS thing.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not concluded yet. The report is still an issue. So I think this is an opportunity again for Lagos State to try and get it right in terms of communication with the public and public trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they have committed to a lot of things. Even, they would like to conduct autopsy on all of the corpses that they found. So we look forward to a positive result in those.
And our heart goes out to all of the families affected by that as well.
Would you like to take your...
Sure.
The Guardian?
Yes, let's take The Guardian. As expected, Anambra dominates a lot of the front page picture space there. And you've got all of the candidates, including the incumbent governor, Willie Obiano, casting his own vote. You've got Soludo there in the cap. Valentine Ozigbo in the red hat, and then the other candidates there as well. Naturally, the stories also they tend to mirror each other this weekend with Anambra and also the building collapse. To the top there is a bit of a political story. Ogun 2023, the battle for APC's political structure intensifies. You've got the current state governor, Dapo Abiodun, as well as his immediate predecessor and the predecessor before him, Benga Daniel. And so it definitely seems as though the political battle within the APC, within Ogun State, seems to be kicking up to another level. I wonder if there's anything. I don't think there's anything.
Price of rice.
And would you look at that? Would you believe the price of rice in the market has gone up? So Unitide beckons. Price of rice is still high, and it is incredibly high. It is.
How shocking. Are you surprised?
I'm very surprised. I see, the thing about rice, all jokes aside, it's very hard to understand what a normal price is. Because usually, for example, if I travel home and it's festival season, rice can skyrocket anywhere up to around 16,000 naira.
Yeah.
And that's obviously not the case. That shouldn't be the case. I don't know how much a bag of rice is now, but it shouldn't be 16,000 naira regardless.
Mr. Komolafe, would you like to take a story on the
maybe still on the collapsed building,
Sure.
you know, just
Yes,
that is just to add to what you two have all said, you know, and that the question will be that pray when shall we be in a position to say never again,
Right.
you know, and that is that, you know, putting in place, you know, not to just only regulatory measures, you know, to prevent this kind of disaster from happening, because this is really a disaster of monumental proportion. Yeah.
Still on the topic of the collapse, there's so many things that's so unsettling. So we did hear that there wasn't a manifest, so there was no formal record of the people who were on the ground. That in itself is a violation, and it's
regulation. That's, I mean, that is the point I'm driving at. You know, that not just only having the regulatory mechanism in place, but also the capacity, you know, and the culture, the discipline to actually enforce, you know, the regulation. And also this should also be an opportunity to really think it through, that do we have really enough laws in place? Because I understand, for instance, that there's a bill, came up in the National Assembly, you know, some years ago, you know, to actually specify the building code, you know, that could be, that should be applicable all over the country.
Yes.
And this should be more than 15 years ago.
It's actually more than 20 years.
Thank you. Yeah, you know.
And it's still stalled.
It's been stalled. So we don't have a national building code that can specify. Exactly. You know. So I think this is an opportunity, you know, for that kind of law, you know, to be put in place. You know, so we need to reactivate that particular bill and ensure, you know, that it's there. But more importantly, is the fact that, you know, when we have a regulation in place, the system should be strong enough to actually enforce, you know, the regulations.
I actually think that Lagos State has, you know, sufficient policies and deterrent for this kind of a thing. I think it is just enforcement and the political will to, if you like, allow enforcement to be done.
Right.
You know, you can't, I mean, with LABSCA and with the material testing agency, everything that you need with the physical planning and everything, they are there for Lagos State. But in most cases, what you find is either there's compromise somewhere or there's interference politically somewhere, which is why we've been hearing orders from above, you know, different stuffs like that. Let's hope, of course, like we said, that the panel of inquiry will come out with decisive, you know, clear-cut recommendations, and people should be punished for what has happened.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, with regards to the fact that there was no manifest, I believe that Lagos State government has said about 46 family members have filled out a missing person report. So we know that at least 46 people are still missing at this point.
Or have been recorded. You know, in addition to us talking about making sure that this doesn't happen again, we're hoping that obviously buildings are safer, but also people's lives should be more important. When we were on the ground and we were there from the very beginning, when the first bodies were being pulled out, none of them were wearing adequate footwear, no boots, nothing with laces, many of them in slippers, no helmets, maybe a few of them in high visibility jackets. So, you know, going forward, we hope that in addition to properties being better and not this obviously not happening, people's lives should be more important at the grassroots level. You should know the name and the address of the person working for you. That person should have a proper uniform. Construction sites shouldn't be open to the public just to walk in.
We take a lot of things for granted, and you see from, again, with this very example, the case of a popular, you know, gospel singer, you know, went there, had the performance, and then after this sad incident happened, you know, she went on social media to say, oh, thank you, folks. I was not there. The video of me performing there happened a week ago. And another person who's also big in on social media says you shouldn't be doing that. You were there at a construction site, no boots, just like Adefemi said, no helmet, no nothing, and you had no business going to an uncompleted building, to have a prayerful, performance kind of a thing. We take so much for granted here.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think as well, just to circle back to what you said about enforcement, that's what it comes down to essentially. If you are found on a construction site with no boots, no proper wear, what will be the consequences of your actions? Rather than waiting for something like this to kind of reflect, we need to be proactive and making sure that we are, enforcing these rules. Why was the building allowed to be 21 stories when planning permission was only for 15 stories? Those kinds of things. What would be the consequences for that type of action? I think is really important going forward.
Absolutely.
Even with that, yeah, I think if we stay on this topic, we'll spend the whole day.
It's a very
sad story.
It is. The magnitude is just,
Well, maybe there's so
should we talk rice?
again.
Who's
Let's
buying us
take
rice?
no rice. Are we not talking about rice? It's a luxury good at the moment, to be honest. It is a luxury good. I thought you go to certain markets in Ijebu and you take 20,000 naira, there's only a few little bits of change you'll be taking back home. It's not good. It's not good.
Steve,
I'm serious.
Of the rice story.
All right, so we move over to another newspaper. We'll go to Sunday Independent now. The lead story there, obviously, is the Anambra election, peaceful amidst allegations of rigging. Riders there, APGA chieftain beaten, ballot boxes snatched as core members allegedly thumbprint ballot papers. We've seen some of those videos circulating on social media. We don't know how true they are. And then Soludo, Ngige, others lament hitches from INEC's beavers. Then exercise extended over malfunctioning machines. We've discussed all of this. But I guess we could take one story for you, Mr. Komolafe, and that's the story beneath on the right on page 5. Niger government demolishes suspected kidnappers' den in Minna. Like your brief analysis on this story.
Yes, I think that story is significant. Significant in the sense that it points out that that the situation is not a completely helpless one, because in Niger State, through some local intelligence network, the activities of a suspect, of kidnapping, was monitored. That this guy, just all of a sudden was putting up some properties, in the neighborhood, and the speed at which the activities were, taking place, became suspicious, and the security agents were alerted. After investigation, the guy was linked to kidnapping, and that the money he used for the construction of the building was his own share of the ransom paid, as a result of the kidnapping activities in Niger State as of recent. So the authority descended upon him, of course, and the building has been demolished. But like I said, the significance of that is just that, contrary to the impression that is sometimes given that the people are just helpless, nothing could be done, the criminals have taken over the whole place, whether you would like to call them terrorists or bandits, depending which dictionary you are using for your definition, that through local effort, community effort, that a lot could still be done, to checkmate the activities, of these criminals, and that people are not completely helpless. So I think that's a very positive step on the part of Niger State government, except to add that whatever step is taken should be according to the law, that we must not allow jungle justice, to reign, so that the innocent will not be unjustly, punished.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we were to take another story that may interest our viewers for you, Yemisi, to analyze, I guess it's on page 4 of the Sunday Independent. Military security agencies nab Uni Abuja abductors as police begin investigation into Abuja kerosene explosion.
Yeah, so unfortunately, kidnapping is, as we all know, becoming a bigger and bigger story every single day. It's great to hear that these people have been released and that those who are responsible for the kidnapping have been caught. But I think that this also raises a lot of questions about the security of the nation's capital, the fact that people were able to get so close. What does that mean for our security infrastructure? What kind of intelligence is being deployed to try to capture these people? I think it's a bit worrying knowing that they're getting closer and closer to the center. What's being done about this? And are those people who have been rescued receiving adequate, treatment and care? That's a really traumatic event. What does this also mean for young people if, everyone going to school and going to university may have in the back of their mind that, bandits may come and attack them? It's not promising, but I mean, this is a bright spot in the sense that they have been rescued. I did just want to circle back to the story that KK was talking about as well, just because I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I know that demolishing a building, it's a significant symbolic gesture about, people not benefiting from the proceeds of crime. But I do wonder if it's not a bit wasteful if, the government couldn't have, taken that building over, refurbished it and put it to good use with somebody else, like within the community. There are a lot of internally displaced people in Niger State. Perhaps it could have been better used in that way rather than just demolishing a building that's probably worth quite a lot of money. But I'm curious to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. That was why I put the addendum, that while it should be celebrated that, a kidnapper, a suspected kidnapper was apprehended, and the government was taking steps that we should avoid jungle justice, and that whatever step the government takes should be according to the law. I'm not sure that any unless there is a legislation of Niger State government, empowering the government, to carry out demolition, it might not be even a legal thing to do. So while the government may be, taking steps, to deal, with the criminals, doing so should still be strictly according to the law. So I agree with you, and I also agree with you that the government could seize the property, and use it for a social, purpose, rather than demolishing it and destroying it. So I agree with you absolutely.
Okay, I think we should quickly move to Vanguard. 3 stories will interest us outside of the Anambra and the 7-star hotel, the building that collapsed in Lagos. One above the masthead is forex scarcity, how we help manufacturers get dollars. That's from the Minister for Trade and Investment, Niyi Adebayo. Then Fulani Afenifere tackles Femi Adesina for attacking clerics. That's on page 4 of Sunday Vanguard. And the other story is Buhari angry with Gumi for 2 reasons. That's according to Gumi's spokesperson, Mamu, which will be found on page 17 of the Sunday Vanguard. So those are 3 stories that are distinct, not part of the Anambra and the demolished, the collapsed building. If you would like to speak to any of those.
Yes.
MC, you want to start for KK?
Okay. Right. Yeah, I think the Gumi story is a very interesting one. For the man who is quoted there, it's an interview with the Vanguard newspaper. Yes. The Manu happens to be the spokesman.
Yes.
As is introduced of Gumi. I say it is significant, because all this while, it has been all a criticism of, the narrative has been that...
the spokesperson.
Yes.
He's always been speaking.
Yeah, exactly, that, Sheikh Gumi has been a butt of, criticism, across the nation for his very controversial position, on the bandits, and terrorists. But this spokesman is now trying to give us an insight into why Gumi is doing well, what he's doing. And one of it is that before embarking on those journeys to the bandits, to the terrorist den, that the state security service, the police, even the office of the president, and all the relevant authorities, were consulted by Gumi, but that notably that the President Buhari did not give any nod, that he didn't get approval from the presidency to do it, but that in some cases the police will cooperate with them, maybe trying to monitor what they were doing, but the army, also never have cooperated with them, Now, it's also important, to note in that narration that is now blaming that because of some political disagreement between President Buhari and Sheikh Gumi, that is what is informing the official attitude, to what is, what is carrying out. But that does not explain the point that while is Sheikh Gumi making all these controversial statements, taking all these controversial steps, and the authorities, especially the security agents, are not doing what they should do, which is to actually get him properly interrogated, ask him, the proper questions and see how that could help, in solving the problem, So this is just the part one of the interview. But like I said, for those who want to know why Sheikh Gumi is doing what he's doing, in a very coherent manner, that interview, provides the material. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Would you like to take on that story, MC, or can we move over to another?
KK has covered it all. The big thing is, why is he able to make these statements? Why is he not being sort of pulled in for questioning? I think he's covered it all.
Well, absolutely. Shall we take the Daily Trust on Sunday? Of course, the usual stories dominate there, but two things that jump out. The National Assembly has moved to establish 74 new hospitals amid poor funding. The Senate proposes 29, whereas the House has proposed 45, as opposed to that 74 number. Our lawmakers are fighting over locations, and the health budgetary allocation is below the African standard. In addition to that, we all know that Daily Trust continue to make sure that school children in captivity is still in the forefront of our minds. It is 127 days since the Bethel Baptist High School kidnapping in Kujama, as well as 144 days since the federal government college kidnapping in Birnin Yauri. KK, I wonder if there was something else that jumped out to me at this on this paper. I can't even find it anymore. Goodness gracious. Never mind. But hospitals. National Assembly to establish 74 new hospitals. Without a doubt, Nigeria needs them. But there seems to be some go-between the Senate and the House, who want 29 and 45 hospitals being built respectively, if I get that correctly.
I wonder why they're the ones proposing the number of hospitals to be built.
I mean,
it's a bit awkward to me. But before we go to the controversy on the establishment of more hospitals when the existing ones are not properly funded, I think we cannot emphasize enough, bringing it into the national consciousness in what I regard as the open sore on the conscience of this nation. That is the case of scores of school children who are still in captivity, And the Daily Trust is doing a good job, in that strip, by always reminding us. Yes. The students in the federal government in Yauri, in Kebbi State, today marks 144 days that these poor children have been in captivity. For those in the Bethel Baptist School in Kujama, in Kaduna, today marks 127th day, I think this is something that should make us all, to be sober, These children should not remain in captivity for a day longer, that the relevant authorities should do all that is necessary, to ensure their safe return, home. Now, the controversy, in the National Assembly over the establishment of more hospitals, the irony of it is that when you add the number of proposals from the House of Reps with those of the Senate, now you're having about 74 new federal medical centers or hospitals to be established. But this is coming at a time when, proportionately, the allocation to health, is actually, exactly, it's dwindling. It's not enough, and further analysis like that report shows that even a greater part of this allocation goes for the current expenditure, and not even for capital expenditure. So you're not talking of the allocation for equipment, for infrastructure to bring these health centers to make them centers of excellence. Now, even the allocation to recurrent expenditure to tell you that it's not enough. That is why the health sector, just like the education sector, is strike, endemic. Every now and then you report, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, are going on strike despite, the allocation. So I think, in terms of the policy on the health sector, I think things could be, better articulated. And again, like Steve said, I find it awkward. Is it the business of the National Assembly to be establishing? I think their own is when the executive, based on policy, based on research, on the need, and also alignment of policies. If they need legal backing to set them, I think that is the point. The National Assembly should come in, not taking up the executive function of knowing where a federal center should be able because it is only the experts in the Ministry of Health that would know whether you need a new federal medical center, anywhere, in the federation. So I think that's something that is not coherent, about the approach of the National Assembly there.
Okay. Shall we move over to another newspaper? Should we take the Sunday Telegraph?
Yeah.
And the lead story there is obviously Anambra. INEC extends voting, begins collation of results. The riders there, drivers, ad hoc staff abscond, cause of insecurity. That's what they're saying. Election, widely peaceful, we can all agree to that, but it was just marred by the BVAS malfunction. Ozigbo, Soludo, Ngige, others expressed shock, especially Soludo, who actually accused INEC of trying to disenfranchise voters in his polling unit. And I think we should take a story above the masthead there. CBN sets 5 billion naira maximum loan for 100 for 100 policy. Quite interesting read. I would like voters' take on that. Mr. Komolafe, would like you to take this one story that we could find on page 5. Insecurity, 11 million Nigerians need humanitarian assistance, says UN representative.
Yeah. I think that is really a matter of emergency. 11 million human beings.
Yeah.
That is more than the population of some West African countries put together. You could put about 4 or 5 West African states, put together, and the population may not be up to 11 million. So to say that the 11 million Nigerians are in such a desperate situation that they need humanitarian assistance to survive, I think it's something that should provoke a sense of emergency, And of course, there is no exaggeration in this, even while one may not, have, the full data, to deal with them. Because when you hear of the stories in the internally displaced person camps all over the country, not only in the northeast, in the middle belt, and elsewhere, discover that the level of deprivation, that goes on in those places, that even children, women, no access to medical care, even water, according to Doctors Without Frontiers, that a number of children die daily in IDP camps, out of sheer dehydration, that they don't have, potable water, to have, and food supply is never, adequate. So I think it's a story that, if you ask me, it should be a major story in all the newspapers, because you are talking of something that is really a matter of emergency. And that same report, of UNDP also says that Nigeria, in terms of categorization, is now the 3rd most terrorized nation on earth. That in terms of the incident, the impact of terrorism, that we are now the worst case.
After Iraq and which other one? After
Afghanistan.
Yes,
yeah. So it's a very grave situation in which we live on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yemisi, I believe that you would like to would like your analysis on that topic as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, KK has covered quite a lot of it. The numbers are very, very disturbing, especially the third most terrorized country in the world after Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm curious about the type of assistance, because it does say that, these refugees or these internally displaced people rather need assistance. What type of assistance are we talking? Over what period of time? Also, how do we reintegrate these people back into society? What steps are being done there? As more and more incidents of terror happen across the country, that's more people adding to that number with nothing seemingly being done to counter that. And it's really worrying. You're going to have a lot of, traumatized, unemployed, broken people, across the country. And that, is bad for them. It's bad for the rest of the population. We cannot move forward when we have mass numbers of people in such a desperate situation.
All right.
Understood. But it is time now for us to take a short break. And when we come back, the newspaper review continues. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We are still joined by This Day Newspaper Limited Group Executive Director, Kayode Komolafe. Thank you for staying with us.
Great introduction, Adefemi Akinse.
We tried. I hope you're not angry, KK. I hope you're not angry. It is. It's the last stretch. Yeah. It is.
Well
We still got the thank you, Steve.
I said well done. I was the first to commend you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you both. We've done well. All right.
So before you take another newspaper,
I don't have any. We've got just
just the Sun. But can we finish on the Sunday Telegraph?
Yes, because I think KK wanted to also speak on one or two more.
Yes, should we do that? Can we take that CBN story? CBN sets a 5 billion naira maximum loan for 100 policy. Very interesting. Are we eligible?
Maybe we should try. the more reason why we should review the story.
Yes, absolutely.
I think this is a very positive one, for the economy, and particularly I think the CBN also should be commended, in trying to spread this, to as many people as possible by setting, the maximum at 5 billion, for entrepreneurs, so that you don't concentrate the resources only in the hands of a few. I think is a policy that should be sustained, so that perhaps in a year or so times, the system will be in position to look back and see not just only the takeoff of the program, but the success, the progress, that has been made. The idea is that if you have this, if entrepreneurs have these resources, then you can create activities within the economy, and that is, those are the things that you need, for progress, to be made, The entrepreneurs, to become productive, they be able to employ people, and be active, economic players, And I think it's quite good for the health of the economy. So, if you like, the CBN has set itself a challenge, which it has to meet, and I think I expect that the public will closely monitor, the progress, of this 100 policy, which is a very good one.
Yeah. All right. Steve,
okay. All right. So we go to the Sunday Sun, where the lead story is something very, interesting. It's political. 2023, PDP targets presidency, 20 states. As Arewa youths vow not to support any candidate over 60 years. This is, Kiki, I'm sure this is sounding like IBB's preference.
Exactly, new breed.
But that's interesting.
Yeah.
There are other stories there, apart from the Anambra Guba. The Sun is focusing on the ECOB's apathy. MAPOL, INEC extends voting time, defers exercise as beavers malfunctions. But there are other stories there, as I said, something to do with the jubilation as Lawan Kalu back chieftaincy titles in Argungu.
And on top of the lead story, below the masthead, Tony Elumelu Foundation announces TEF entrepreneur beneficiaries November 12th, which is a story that you'll find on page 3. Two other stories. Mietiala Borden. They threw me invisible stones, call me unprintable names. That's Temitope Ajayi. It's an interview with her on page 22. And another interview with Nollywood actress Shasha Donald, how I overcame sex for role traps in Nollywood.
That will interest you.
Will interest OG's trending.
But still, you're an artist. This is the type of topic you deal with usually.
So it's a big shame. It's a big shame that that's still the case, where opportunities for women across the spectrum of industries come off the back of, illicit relationships. So it is a shame that she's had to survive so many traps.
That's a claim, though. Sometimes,
but it's a general story across board in Nollywood, really. That really is what it is, and that's what it highlights.
It is true, but we've also seen stories of deliberate trying to malign other people, producers, and accusing them wrongly.
Blackmail.
Accusing them wrongly, etc. I think it's the social media mess is part of all this. People want to trend for any reasons whatsoever and make outlandish claims that sometimes, but I totally agree with you that this sort of a thing is very permissive in Nollywood, as indeed in other, you'll be shocked. Exactly, you'll be shocked even in the corporate world, not to talk of civil service, how this has become a staple for many orgas, at the top. We just want.
We need more females at the top.
So, KK, sir.
Yeah, I think we should take the political story, which is the
lead.
Yeah, of the son. Yeah. I think it would be in order to congratulate Dr. Senator Yosha Ayu, and the other members of the National Executive of the PDP, that are now in charge of the party following their very successful convention. But at the same time, to also admonish, that given the tune of that story, that the PDP is targeting 20 states. Like before they were having over 20 states controlled by PDP as a result of their political misfortune that of 2015 has now decreased to a lower number, about 13. That the purpose of politics should not just be to target states and win election, capturing the state, which again is very unfortunate, because when you say capture, that's not a democratic language. That's a martial language. That's a military. It's the military that captures a state. Politicians, they try to persuade and people and win their confidence, not by capturing them. But the point is that the aim of PDP should not just to capture more states, but now to put itself in the position to actually perform the role of a political party, which is not just to win election, but also to be a machine, for articulating policies, for coming up, to solutions to the problems that we are facing.
That's right.
So what we should be hearing from PDP under Senator Yosha Ayu is not the boast of how they are going to recover lost ground in terms of political influence, but how PDP will become relevant in finding solutions to the problems of Nigeria. So now we'll expect targets of policies to bring out millions of Nigerians out of poverty, and also to solve insecurity amongst other problems that we have on the land. So that should be the focus, not just capturing states.
Great.
Agreed. Thank you so much for that update, KK.